Welcome to the Financial Coaches Podcast, where we talk about how to build your practice from startup to scale up while being the kind of coach your clients crave. Finally, a podcast for financial coaches. Here are your hosts, Maria Casillas and Cody Sizemore.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Financial Coaches Podcast. I'm Maria Casillas, joined here by my incredible co-host, Cody Sizemore, whom I've not had the joy of seeing in a couple of weeks. And so, Cody, I'd like to just welcome you back and ask you how you've been, buddy.
Thanks. I've been okay. I've been all right. Could be better. But yeah, we were supposed to record a couple weeks ago, and I think it was like the morning of or the night before or something like that. I had just like texted Maria like really, really quick, and I was like, "Hey, can't meet today. Super sick," and then I fell back asleep, kind of thing. Basically I had the flu.
Ugh.
And I was bedridden for like 3 days. And then the 3 or 4 days after that, I was basically like trying to crawl around my house.
Oh,
So I was out for the count for like an entire week for sure.
wow. And I can
So
still hear some congestion in your voice and everything. And it's already been a couple weeks. That's kind of
yeah,
crazy.
yeah, it's been about 2 weeks since it was there. But yeah, energy wise, I'm feeling much better. But
Good.
I definitely still have like some lingering cough, lingering congestion, that kind of thing. Uh, so could be better. And with that, it brought some challenges, which I'm sure we're going to talk about today. Um, but yeah, that's how Cody has been.
Well, welcome back. I'm glad that you're on the mend, and I'm excited to jump into a conversation today. You had mentioned just briefly before we hit record today that, this is that time of year when when we kind of like to look at how are we doing compared to last year. And I remember maybe it was last year around this time that we talked about like the ebbs and flows of life and of business and all
Mhm.
sorts of things. And I'm gonna ask if this is a good time to revisit some of that discussion with you today.
It's absolutely a good time
Okay.
because I'm kind of going through it to be
Okay.
to be
Okay.
honest
So
with you.
this is
So
obviously like a cycle.
yeah.
I just want to point that out there. If this is
Oh
something you're going through again, then we know that this is a pattern and something to be on the lookout for.
yes, yes, yeah, 100%. And what's funny is that I was on the lookout for it this year. Um, I think that going into next year, I'm going to have to be even more on the lookout for it. So,
So tell me what's going on.
yeah. So, um, for the long time listeners, maybe our every weekers, they might remember a podcast episode around this time last year where we did talk about the ebbs and the flows of financial coaching, right?
Mhm.
And you could even go back and listen to that episode if you haven't listened to it yet. But basically, the long and short of it was, last year I was kind of talking about I was kind of stressed out because I was looking at my records from last year to the year prior. And at that time, I was about like 30% behind what I had done in the year prior. And I didn't like that. I'm a very competitive person and I like to beat myself like all the time.
Mhm.
Um, not physically, but what I mean? Like, but I like to win against myself. So that really bothered me at that time, and I worked really, really hard throughout the entire course of the year, and was finally able to kind of like catch up and get things into a good place. And I ended the year last year in a place I was happy with. So, you know, that's the long and short of like that whole ebbs and flows conversation. And then fast forward to this year, I took off some time around the Christmas season, about a week. And, that was a little bit shorter than what I did the year prior because I wanted to adjust because I didn't want to have a repeat. Um, and, because I had that week off, my January was light for sure.
Mhm.
It wasn't as light as the year prior, but it was still lighter, definitely. I had to make some adjustments. My personal finances, I wasn't funding certain areas that were more, not necessarily necessities. And, I had to pull a little bit from savings just to kind of like cover a couple things, all of which I was mentally prepared for. And, I kind of accepted like, okay, this is just that month kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, but then, you know, I was thinking that February would be that month where things start to turn around again because I would get that momentum back and everything would kind of work in my favor. But then I got the flu. And unfortunately, I was forced to take off another week because I physically could not perform kind of thing,
Mhm.
you know? Um, so then that led to not just one bad month or one underperforming month, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
but two underperforming months. And
In a
I
row,
mean,
no less.
in a row,
Mhm.
correct. So now I'm currently looking at, where I am today, year to date, as compared to where I was last year. And keep in mind, last year I was 30% behind the year prior. So keep that in mind because as of today, I am now 60% behind where I was last year.
Mm.
So if you put that into context, I'm probably like 75 to 80% behind where I was 2 years ago. And that has been very, very challenging for me on many fronts. Financially speaking, yes, one. Um, I haven't been able to do the things that I want to do. I haven't been able to provide, the family with the way that I really want to. I've had to dip into, emergency savings for this purpose, which, I have it. That's what it's for, but I don't like doing that.
Mhm.
Um, but then also mentally, I just feel like I'm super behind. I feel like I'm losing all these different types of things. So that is my confession. And I thought that it'd be good to kind of talk through today for several reasons. One, because I know that I'm probably not alone in this. There's probably someone else who's been dealing with this, maybe at the same time as me, or maybe at different times, maybe even right now, kind of thing. Um, and if someone isn't dealing with this, I also think that it's good because they might deal with this in the future. And then I also think I would just like to have like a little bit of a venting session, well, because I don't have anyone to talk to about this except for my wife, which, God bless her. I love her, but, she's just like, is there anything I can do? I'm like, not really, like it really has to do with me. Um, but I appreciate you trying kind of thing. So
Mhm.
that's really the furthest of, support that I have outside of our community of coaches, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm here for it. Let's let you vent. But let's do it in a way that hopefully is a little productive.
Yeah,
And
100%.
yes. Otherwise it will just be a vent session and then, you know. I mean, that's always nice too sometimes just to have the ability to chat through stuff. Um I want to point out something that I heard you say,
Hmm.
and I actually wrote it down real quick because I didn't wanna forget to come back to it, but I think it was actually pretty powerful, and I'm wondering if you can apply that to your current situation. You said that you ended the year with something in a place that you were happy with, I think is how you said it. And
Hmm.
I don't remember if it was this past year or the year before. I feel like it was this past year that you
Yeah.
ended
Hmm.
because you were comparing it to the year before, right?
Yeah.
So just for giggles, could you say when you say you ended in a place that you were happy with, can you describe that just a teeny bit?
Like what I mean by that or how I felt about it.
Well, either way, I mean, you can describe the actual number if you want, but I'm wondering if you can kind of define what does happy mean in that context for you?
Yeah. I guess just not going backwards, you know?
Okay. Okay.
Where I ended this prior year, was just like a couple thousand more than what I did the year before.
Okay.
Which to me, because I had that first quarter, be something to where I was like 30% behind. I was like, well, that's a big win.
Yeah.
Like I was able to like recoup and catch up, and I still ended in a place that was very comparable, if not slightly more than the
Hmm.
year prior. So I felt good about that. I was happy about that. I was proud of myself that I was able to, pick myself up and make things work and follow through and continue to take even just a small step forward, very small step forward. So that's what I meant by, I ended the year in a place that I was happy with, kind of thing.
Okay, fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, if somebody had given you that exact same scenario in January, February, March of 2025 and said, "Hey, Cody, this is how you're going to end your year." How would you have felt about that at that time?
Like if I was in the heat of the moment and someone told me, hey, I'm from the future and this is what's going to happen. Is that what
Yeah,
you're
let's
asking?
start with that.
Hmm. How would I feel if someone told me that?
Yeah.
It's a good question. I think that I would feel relieved. Um, but I also would feel like I'd have questions. I'd be like, okay, well, what do I need to do in order for that to happen? Kind of
Uh,
thing, you know?
okay.
So it would be a mix of like, some relief and some pressure being taken off my shoulders, but at the same time, also understanding that like it's not a magic wand that's going to allow me to get there. Like
Mhm.
that's
Mhm.
going to happen because of something that I did or circumstance or whatever it might be. It's going to happen in some way, shape, or form. So how do I make that happen as well?
Okay.
That's how I would
Okay.
feel.
Yeah, okay. And then just 2 months prior to that, like in a December month, so December 2024, I'm going back in the future on purpose. In
Hmm.
December 2024, when you were starting to forecast and I know you set goals to hit like 50% higher, right, than your previous years or something like that.
Hmm.
So you're sitting there and you're setting your goals and your number is 50% higher, but then somebody comes in and forecasts for you. Well, they tell you the future and say you're only going to come in $2,000 higher than you did this past year, not $50,000 higher. How
Hmm.
are you feeling about that?
I would feel okay about it, but I probably would be a little bit frustrated.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What do you think that frustration would be stemming from?
Probably because at that time I wouldn't know that I would be going through, you know, a number of challenges. Um, and I think that the frustration would just come from like, well, you have shown a good amount of growth every year up until this point. So what are you going to be doing differently or wrong that would stunt that growth kind of thing,
Mhm.
you
Mhm.
know? And a lot of this, I want to be very clear, a lot of this is just a lot of uh, manufactured pressure that I just put on myself.
Mhm. Yep. I know that. I'm glad you know that.
Yeah.
It's partly why I'm asking the question because when you go back in time, this is why I'm doing that. We have these dreams, we have these goals, we have these ideals that we put together.
Hmm.
And then we have expectations. And oftentimes those expectations, I'm sure you've heard that saying that expectation is the thief of joy. And
Yeah.
and I think that that is oftentimes what's happening for you. And the reason I think that is because you ended in a place that you were happy with. So and that place is not where you would have gone if you had it all your way,
Hmm.
right? It's not what you had laid out for yourself. So a couple of things are happening. One, you are finding contentment in this scenario, in whatever situation you're in. You're able to kind of take that deep breath and go, you know what? I'm actually happy with this. It's not didn't turn out the way I wanted it to, but I'm actually happy. And I'm wondering if there's a way to pick up some of that decided contentment, like it's an intentional decision to be content, and to kind of place that in the pit that you're in right now.
hmm I hear what you're saying. Um, and I promise you, I'm not just saying this because it
I
is
believe
true.
you.
Um, I do feel like while I'm sitting here and I'm telling you that I'm disappointed and I'm stressed and I'm trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces again. At the same time of this, I also understand that January was what it was, and I expected that. So
Mhm,
I made peace with that. I was content with that. I was okay with it. And, I move on kind of thing, right? It's the February side of things that I wasn't expecting, that, unfortunately I did get sick. That sucked as a whole anyways.
mhm. Yeah.
And now I'm having to deal with this 2 times in a row.
Mhm, mhm,
Now, while all that's on the negative spectrum, what I will say is that I understand that the circumstance that I have right now is not necessarily because I've been, like, underperforming or I haven't been, putting in the time or the energy or the effort.
mhm.
I've been doing all of that. It was just a circumstance that just happened, you
Yep.
know? So while I'm upset about it, I also am very understanding about it. And I do have this kind of like patience and this like, I guess you could say like bigger picture kind of thinking to where I'm like, I know that this is going to turn around. I know that it's going to. I know that, it's going to pick back up. Um, because I've proven that to myself time and time again. And also, that is something to where it's like God has always provided kind of thing, and he's never failed me. Even when I've been in a situation like this before, he's always came through. So I
Mhm.
do have a level of contentment now. It's there, it's present. Uh, but it is, I don't know if this word is best to describe it, but it's the word that's coming to me, which is it's dim.
Mm,
It's dim. It's there. The fire is
mhm,
there, but it's just some embers right now.
mhm,
It's not a big
mhm,
flame kind
mhm,
of thing, you know?
mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. All right. So, I mean, there are probably some things we could do to fan that flame a little bit, but I don't want to problem solve. Like I just want to be able to sit in that and
Mhm.
recognize, if nothing else, as you were talking, I heard so much opportunity for empathy for your clients
Mhm.
because because the way you describe things, you're like, well, I knew this was going to happen. Like I knew this thing in January. It was sort of planned for. I took this week off and I had sort of mentally planned for it, and I had money set aside to basically draw in my income. So for those of you who are not every weekers, this is Cody's income. This is not a side gig for him. It is the primary. And now I think his wife is actually at home with the kids too. And so it's your only income,
It's the
right?
only income.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
which is
So
why
that's
it's so
important
like,
context. That's right.
you
That's
know?
right.
Yeah.
That's right. So it is a very important context. But even with that, you had planned, because each time you make a certain amount, you put some aside just in case, so that you can draw that salary for yourself.
Mhm.
And so that was planned. And then the sickness wasn't. And it's whether it's a sickness or something else, you described it as a circumstance that just happened. And man, does that happen with our clients as
Yeah.
well. And
Yeah,
I think
for
there's just that recognition of there are some things that clients create their circumstances. I actually believe that, like whatever it's consequential circumstance. So there are some things that they're creating that cluster for themselves. But there are things in life that just we have no control over, and
sure.
getting sick might have been one of those things for you. Is that it could be chicken or egg, were you stressed out because you got sick? Did you get sick because you were stressed out? Like it could all be mixed in, but it doesn't matter. The point is you were not expecting that. It happened and now you're having to deal with what's there. So just the amount of empathy that will give not just you, but our listeners as well, for
Hmm.
the things that do happen in our clients' lives. And it's not just excuse making all the time. There is some of that, but that's not all the time. And sometimes we just need to take a step back and go, man, I'm really sorry that this is going on for you. And what can we do to, you know, to deal with it in the moment?
Hmm. Yeah, it's you bring up a really good point, and I've been working with enough clients for long enough that like I see people go through things to where it isn't their fault. It
Hmm.
just is what it is, kind of thing. And coaching someone through that to where they're like, well, why did this happen, or this always happens, or why can't we seem to never make progress, or whatever it might be, right?
Hmm.
um, Having a circumstance like this happen to myself or to you as a coach or a listener, or whoever is really listening right now, it can really help you, like you mentioned, empathize with them. um, and also, like, I have zero issues sharing these things with my clients. I have shared these things with my clients over the last couple of weeks when it was appropriate.
Hmm.
um, because I think that it's important for them to know that, like, hey, like, just because you get yourself out of debt and you have some money in the bank doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be like in a perfect world, kind of thing, you
Right.
know? Um, Now, that also doesn't mean that you shouldn't strive to get there either, but I go through it too, you know? So, for example, um, I had a client over the last week or so lose their job. And, he made a decent amount of money. He was bringing home like 8 grand a month from this job. So to lose that, it's a pretty considerable hit to the
Hmm.
family's finances. And he lost the job. It was actually a crazy situation. I'm not going to get into it, but essentially, he had a coworker that he invited over to a Christmas party, and there was an allegation that the coworker made that was completely false, simply
Okay.
because he wanted to advance in his career, which was crazy. So he
Right.
got fired from a company that he's been working with for 26 years.
Oh no.
Yeah, no
Oh,
questions asked. He even had like video proof, and they didn't want the video. They just fired him. It
that
was it,
seems a little suspicious, but
it was a crazy situation. Yeah. Um. So I was helping him through that, helping them through that situation, and I kind of brought up my situation, and they're a client that pays monthly, kind of thing. Um, and even though I really, really could use that payment, I also knew that, like, for me to serve them right now for what they're needing the most, I was like, hey, if we want to hold off on this month and then we can get back into it next month, as far as like making a payment goes, just to help you guys escape through this right now, um, I'm fine with that. And they took advantage of that. And that sucks on my end because I could really use that money. But at the same time, I think that it's important for me um, to really serve those clients, because I have a situation right now, because of what I've been able to build, that I can make it through better with $500 less than what they could, kind of thing.
mhm, mhm.
Um, so that's where I think that the empathy starts to really come into play. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really kind of you. Very gracious. And that I do believe that that blessing will be multiplied for you in some way, shape, or form. I don't know how, not necessarily monetarily, but it will be. And I just think that that's they're going to remember that about you.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
maybe that's the thing that will make them, sing your praises and have referred 3 extra people, you know what I mean?
It's
Um,
possible.
that's
Hmm.
right, that's right. So, I think that that's actually really awesome that you did that.
Yeah.
Um, I also wanted to, just touch base on the whole idea of preparing, like, what that really looks like.
Yeah.
Um especially if we've got somebody who's listening today who is trying to do this full time, or maybe they're already like, this is what I need to do. This is my full time job. Would you mind? I know you've always shared this in the past, so I know you don't mind. But for those who don't yet know, how do you set yourself up to pay yourself on a regular basis? And how do you determine how much that is? And does that prepare you for moments like this? I know it's a very loaded 3 questions. I'm just going to leave them there and let you answer them in whatever order you feel fit.
Yeah, so I won't go into a super deep dive. We've discussed this at length before in different episodes.
Yeah.
So, you can search around for that. Something about like, structuring your business finances, something like that, right? Um, but the short answer would be that any sort of income that's generated kind of just like goes into an operating account for me. And then I pay myself every 2 weeks.
Okay.
So at the time of like payday, I look at all the revenue that was generated. I have like a little buffer amount in my operating account for the business that I like, have as like a flat line kind of thing. Um, so I look at the revenue, and then I um, take 15% and I transfer that over for taxes. And then I take 15% and I transfer that over into like an emergency fund slash like profit account kind of thing.
Okay.
They're kind of like a hybrid kind of thing there.
Mhm.
Um, and then whatever's left, less the buffer for the expenses that I know are coming up, I then cut that as the paycheck kind of thing.
Okay. Okay. So not only do you have a an unpredictable cash flow for your business, you
Mhm.
also, by way of the way you do this, have an unpredictable income.
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Now, that is something that could be solved for anybody who's listening that doesn't like the unpredictable income part of it. But
I do like it, by the way. We've
I
talked
know
about
you
this
do.
before.
I know you do. I
Mhm.
know. That's why I said somebody who's listening. And that's something we converse about on a regular
Mhm.
basis. But for the person who needs that predictable income, that actually the way that he does it could be tweaked just shy of one thing.
Mhm.
But they all he has to do is everything you said is normal, but instead of cutting the check for the entire amount, cut a check for the amount that you know you want or need for your family,
Right.
and then the rest can stay. In which case, months like this, you end up with, you've got that overflow or whatever, and then you can pay yourself from that. So that is only to ask because of the predictability piece of it if somebody's needing that. Now I know that when we can talk about that in a whole nother episode as well in terms of what predictability looks like for clients and such. But yeah, I appreciate you sharing that. And you like it when we have moments like this. What I see you nodding your head. I'm
Mhm.
not even sure the right question to ask, but you already know it. So answer that question that is not coming to my mind.
Yeah, when you have moments like this, like, I guess it's like, well, do you like it? Kind of thing. No, I don't. I don't. But here's why I like having the unpredictable income, um, as compared to like a salary kind of thing.
It pushes you.
I think the salary is a great idea, and full transparency in this very moment, like where I'm at, like right here, right now. Um, yeah, that sounds really nice. That sounds really nice for sure. Uh, but here's why I like the unpredictability side of things. There are definitely months where I make much more than what I have like in my budget sheet, kind of thing.
Mhm.
Um, and in those months, I can make a ton of progress on the different goals that I have. It really helps speed things up a lot. Um, and I feel really great, in those months. Like it's amazing. Um, but then, during the months where they're a little bit lower, maybe not as extreme as I'm dealing with right now, um, that helps push me.
Right.
It helps push me. And that's just my personality.
Yeah.
I feel like I perform well when my back is against the wall kind of
Hmm.
thing, you know? Um, and I know that about myself, which is why I'm like okay with I guess you could say suffering, because I know that through that suffering it's going to promote growth kind
Hmm.
of thing. Um, so that's why I like the unpredictable income. But I would be lying to you if I told you that in a season like I am right here today, that the salary approach wouldn't sound appealing. I would be lying to you. It does
Yeah.
sound appealing
Yeah.
right now, right?
Yep. I
But
wonder
I
if there's
just
like a
know I know
hybrid.
me. I know me.
Yeah. Yeah. And we don't need to solve that today, but I wonder, I'm just curious if there's like a hybrid that would, do both for you.
Mhm,
And maybe there is. And maybe that's something that, we can talk about later or you can think about or whatever. But I just want to say what I really appreciate about what you're doing right now is that you're making informed decisions. Like even just your willingness to go, God, that would be really nice right now. If
mhm,
if you weren't willing to admit that, then even the idea of some sort of hybrid would be like not even near your thought process. So just I I like that you're willing to say we learn and we grow as we go through stuff.
mhm,
And that the way that you operate now is probably an outgrowth of something else that was from before. And as you continue to expand and grow, the way that you operate in 5, 10 years might look a little bit different than this, but it will be based on your experience and the outgrowth of that experience.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I agree, and I don't know where that comes from, to be honest with you. I might need to do, like, a hard audit on myself, um, but it comes from somewhere.
What, the competitiveness part, you mean?
Oh,
Or
I know where that comes from. I grew up with 2 older sisters, you know? Uh,
so what are you wondering where it comes from?
the point of, like, um, being okay with putting myself against the wall,
Oh,
you
mhm,
know?
mhm,
And not being afraid of that either. Now I, of course, don't wanna welcome it because I don't
yeah,
like it when my back is against the wall kinda thing, but being okay with it because I understand that good things can come from it. I don't know where that comes from,
gotcha,
and
mhm.
I probably need to figure that out.
Well, I mean, it could manifest in way unhealthier ways, so I
Mhm.
think you're doing all right. It's
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
it's just I mean, I know based on your background that, this has always kind of been the way that you operate, and you on your own with the back against the wall, you can handle, popping open some SpaghettiOs and just having that cold on a regular
That's right.
basis.
That's
But
right.
you're not an island at this point now. You're the head of a household that has multiple children, and so you're
Mhm.
now thinking differently,
Yep.
and you're trying to provide in fact, when we first opened up this conversation, one of the heaviest things on your heart when you mentioned it was I'm not providing for my family the way I want to.
Yep.
And I 15 years ago, that wouldn't have been something that came off of your tongue because you didn't have a family, but B, you were just a different person back then. And so,
Mhm.
so as we grow, there are circumstances that happen. There are conditions that take place that change for us. And even though your personality might be the same, it might manifest itself differently. So
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And who knows, like, 5 years from now, I might feel and operate differently. Who knows, you know?
yeah.
Um, but I think that, like, just to kinda, like, bring this whole thing full circle, right? This was not meant to just be like a "woe is me," like, venting session. Um, I really think that, like, just being transparent with this is important because I know that there's a lot of coaches who are listening to this right now who have goals and aspirations to go full time with coaching, you know? And I think that like sometimes in the financial coaching realm or even just coaching realms in general, entrepreneurship realms, really, uh, it can be glamorized a lot,
Mhm.
and the challenges and the hard times aren't talked about enough. And I think that we all are smart enough to know that like it's going to happen. It comes with the territory. Um, but at the same time, I also think that like hearing actual stories from actual people with actual circumstances can help provide perspective. It can even help provide like, hey, I heard this story, and now because of that, I'm going to make a shift to help prepare myself for if and when something like that happens to me, kind of thing. So my hope is that through this, if we want to call it venting session today, um, that the listeners, you listening right now, yes, you're like me, yeah, you, that you got some sort of value from this, and that you attack this next week, next month, next year, whatever it might be, um, at your best ability, and that you don't let something like this circumstance for me, uh, you know, install any sort of fear or anything like that, but instead it actually motivates you to prepare yourself so that if and when you do go through something like this, that you won't be feeling, um, you know, held back, that you can just take that next step kind of thing. That's my main goal with this conversation today. So,
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing with us. And I think that will definitely have come through as a result of this conversation for the
mhm,
right listeners.
yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, guys. Well, thanks for listening to another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast. We'll be back next week with another episode. And if you want to chime in, if you want to share your experiences, or if you want to comment on mine or whatever it might be, a really good place to do that would be our Facebook group. So you're welcome to join that. It's the Financial Coaches Community by New Money Habits. It's free to join. Pop in there, let us know your thoughts on this episode, and we'll connect and we'll have a good little chat. So, but until then, we will catch you guys next week for another episode of the Financial Coaches Podcast.
Thank you for listening to the Financial Coaches Podcast, brought to you by New Money Habits and Sizemore Financial Coaching. Submit your questions to our hosts by emailing podcast@newmoneyhabits.com. Be sure to subscribe to be notified of future episodes and join our growing group of like-minded coaches on Facebook. And until next time, happy coaching.